Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Kevin is the founder and CEO of Invisible Insights Incorporated, and he lives in Sugar Creek here in Ohio. He serves his clients as a business advisor, executive coach, trainer, and he serves as a contributor on the Forbes Coaches Council. Kevin works to provide insight and results-based development for his clients by mentoring them to see invisibles, the key framework behind organizational, personal, and professional growth and success. So Kevin, thank you for being here and take it away.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Tara, for asking, and shout out to the whole SMA, both live and watching in here in the future. Today we're going to talk about something that I think is really important. You know, if I hear the word uncertain, unprecedented, you know, if I hear all those euphemisms, I'm about going to go crazy because, you know, we've heard it, we're living in it, we're in the middle of it, and yet there's a part of that, and I really believe that in all of us, that we struggle with sometimes is it's easy once we get immersed into some level of things that are outside of our control, we get overwhelmed. And within the context of the overwhelm, we end up going to something that I call defaults. This is the high-tech part of the program here. But, you know, the thing here is it's so important for us to be disciplined in this season and not fall into our defaults. And our defaults come in all different shapes and sizes, and most of the time, our defaults are somewhere connected to the kryptonite in our lives, or the dysfunctions, or our pasts, or the things that remind us of past hurts, or whatever that would be, that start to, you know, create that within us. Well, then put us in our same house for 45 days, you know, and dealing, you know, with ourselves and within ourselves in the context of all the uncertainty. I can only imagine what we're going to be like as we're all going back and releasing ourselves back into the universe with other people who have done exactly the same thing. So as I've spent many hours thinking through and processing, I think in most of my coaching calls have been more around the psychology of what's going on right now and a lot less on the tactical of what's going. But I really believe that invisible in all this is how the two have to merge into a very disciplined framework that we have to bring in this new season. And you know, I don't have all the answers. I don't think anybody does in terms of what's going to happen. But the one thing that we do need to understand is we got to control the controllables, and we have to be and have a focus and a direction for that. So with that said, I started talking to some of my peers in the Coaches Council, which has been phenomenal. You know, being part of the Forbes Coaches Council has, you know, really provided me access to some very tremendous coaches, some of the best in the industry. And it's a huge opportunity to pick their brain and get some insight from them. And so from a lot of those phone calls, in terms of, hey, if we had to give 8 things to people, you know, 8 things to be thinking on, 8 things to stay on top of, 8 things to really be disciplined in, what are those 8 things? And then it resulted in the document that you have. It was emailed to you yesterday, and that we're seeing here on the screen. So you want to dive in? You guys ready to dive into these?
Let's do it.
This thing's great. So the first thing we're going to take a look at here is the concept of neutral thinking. And neutral thinking is developed or originated, at least in my experience, through a guy named Trevor Mowat. And Trevor is actually the performance coach for the Alabama football team. I think he works with the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. What's that guy's name, Sean? What's the quarterback? Seattle. What's that kid's name?
Yeah, that would be
Russell Wilson. Yes. So you got Russell Wilson. He just works with these ultra performers, high draft picks. He works with Clemson's, worked with Georgia. You just all these teams in terms of performance. And the thing that he learned in the context, and my biggest takeaway was they didn't need to have more positive thinking. They needed to have more neutral thinking. And the neutral thinking is more in line of the idea of not giving the past too much power. We tend to give the past more power than we should. And his take on it is what has happened has happened, what is. We have to focus our energy on what will be. And that neutral thinking is really more about where you're focusing your energy on. And as you can tell that in our current culture today, now everyone's in detective mode and we're wanting to go backwards with this whole virus thing rather than be focusing on moving forwards. And I get it, some of it's political. I get the whole dynamic of that, but we don't necessarily have to get pulled into the detective of who did what first and when. We got families to feed. We got businesses to build. We've got relationships with customers to take care of and develop and nurture. We have relationships with vendors that we got to really dial into. There's so much that's more important than figuring out whose fault what was. And so this whole idea of neutral thinking is really about not getting sucked into it. So I tell everybody, go on a media diet. You know, this is a really good time to go on a media diet. And to really, if you're going to follow people who are positive and forward thinking and focusing on the what will be. Because in order to manage uncertainty, you need energy. And there is an energy suck from that. And because we're not as mobile as we once were, now we're kind of getting to become more normal or more mobile, the sense of that part of it, getting that mobility will get us more places to put our brains. Right now, our brains are focused on fewer things. And so because of that, it's just, hey, where am I going to manage my energy? And I work with leaders all the time, especially many of the executives I coach, always talking about, how are you manage your energy? How are you managing your state? What are those states? And I talked about this in a Car Rides with Kevin video, where we talked about, hey, there are 3 states, right? The what has happened, the what is happening, and the what will be. So the what will be is that state. And the book from Trevor Mowat, if you ever want to check it out, is called It Takes What It Takes. And it's a phenomenal read, and he breaks it down even more in depth. But I think this is so important. Energy is what it's going to take, and I think sustained energy is what it's going to take, especially as we get into further ahead in multiple quarters. So with that said, any thoughts or questions on neutral thinking? Anything bouncing out there? Good deal. This is the audience participation part of the program, so I'll give you a shot every time you guys want to go back and forth. That's cool, but you know, feel free to raise your hand. If I could see you, we'll call you out, or Tara could probably see everybody. She would call
I can.
We'll stop the train. So, but the next one is bounce back focus. And the focus, as we go into the next part of it, is really about the whole idea of how do we punch fear in the face here? How do we make sure that we are really getting into this thing, you know? And I really, you know, as I sat down with other coaches and talked with other coaches, you know, it really comes down to just the fundamentals, you know, and we don't have to spend a lot of time here because it's pretty straightforward. You know, hey, we got to be safe and clean. We got to train and we got to cross train. Cash, come on. We got to make sure we're doing right with cash. We got to, you know, assess and improve our processes in our systems. We should be doing some process assessments right now and asking some questions about some things about how we can improve. And here's the biggest one, I think, though, too. Be the source for relevant news and information. Because when you're consistent in communicating with your team, when you're consistent in communicating with the people that you lead in your organization, they need to hear that consistently from you. You become that source. You're the guy who the Bible says a wise man avoids all extremes, right? So you got 2 big extremes out there always going on. Somebody's got to be the voice of reason who's consistent and focused and applies all of that stuff that's out there to what the day requires. You know, what do we have to do today? We have to win the day. And so as you're that source for relevant news and information, they get to experience that through your leadership, through your filter. And I will guarantee you this, they'll adjust because this is the invisible. Clarity always defines leadership. It always does. If you're in a dark room and you got a flashlight, you're in charge. So that's the deal here on that part of it. You know, you got to make sure that you're that relevant source for news and information. And then the last part of that too is celebrate and appreciate. You know, this is good, party a little bit right now. I mean, have a little bit of fun. You know, I mean, we have enough, you know, turmoil going on in the world today. You might want to just bust out the grill and buy a pack of hot dogs. You know what I'm saying? And if it's getting nice outside, you know, eat some dogs and just chat for a minute, you know? And so, you know, make sure you party a little bit right now. Because I think that brings us all back. Question, Gina.
You have to do that with social distancing.
Yeah, just make sure you give everybody a piece of string at 6 feet long and then just make sure they all eat their hot dog with their string tight. Just keep the string tight and you eat your hot dogs. There you go. I bet it's a hot dog and a piece of string. Yep. Or yarn, or whatever your choice is. Or a 2x4. Good word, Gina. Good. Anyone else? So party like it's 1999. Now the next one's an important.
Like John.
It's like 1999. So now the next one is test all assumptions. And neutral thinking is really key to this because sometimes you got to do scenario analysis. Hey, if we think that like I've heard over and over again, the construction industry is kind of cocooned in all this whole kind of thing and they're safe. Great. But have we done any scenario analysis? Hey, what if the fourth quarter isn't what everybody sells? What if there are other things? What if oil really tanks? And what if all of a sudden we start seeing the ripples from that start to affect supply chain? What are all of the things that we have to begin to start looking at? Sometimes it's good to sit down with the leaders in your organization and especially your top leaders. And you remember like Little League when a coach would say, you know, man on second, 1 out, ball hit the right field. What do you do with it? You know, sometimes you got to do those things, you know, with your team. That way, when the ball does go to right field, we're all on the same page. And not just, you know, you don't want the whole scatteredness of everyone going to default when something isn't going according to plan or when you got to make a tough call. So I just would encourage you, man, this is so important. Do some of those things, you know, and dial in your brain. And I'm not saying, you know, do skies falling stuff, but you just want to make sure that you're saying, hey, if pricing, you know, goes up this percent, what do we do? You know, if we can't source certain types of species of lumber because of whatever, you know, what would that do? If there's going to be more trade issues between the United States and China going forward, will we be impacted? How will that be? I think there are just certain things you just want to make sure you're thinking through and talking through. And anytime I've done that with teams, we've always come out with great questions. And I think that is like the trademark, I think, of a great team. Are they not so much the answers they give, it's the questions they ask. I'm always listening to what are the questions. So those are good things. The next one is circulate with purpose. And feel free to stop anytime if you guys got questions. I was thinking Michael Scott's Rolodex on this one. I was watching an episode. If you don't know, hey, go Google Michael Scott's Rolodex and you'll get a good episode of The Office on that one. But anyway, it's time to build, you know, a communication cadence. It's so important. We always have to remember our top 25 customers in general usually make about 89% of our revenue. You know, and we need to make sure that we're staying in connection with them. We need to be in really, really a state of connection and information. Some obviously may have been impacted differently during this season. So obviously there's going to be some where they may be a little bit harder to reach, you know, and I would say this, whenever you're doing these conversations, find a way to add value to them. And I will tell you one thing that I've learned just in this short time is people want to be able to express what they feel without being judged. That's just, I mean, people just want to say it. They want to get stuff off their chest. And if you're just like, just having a conversation and they're allowed to do that, they're gonna remember that. You know, neuroscience tells us that we remember people who stood by us during tough times. And our memories go deep. So when you go the extra mile, when you connect with that customer and you walk with them and you help them with their level of overwhelm, I put this on Instagram today, but you know, overwhelm is definitely connected to opportunity. And if there's a part of that they're overwhelmed in and it creates an opportunity for you to help solve that problem for them, they will remember that. They will remember. And there will be a time when you're going to want them to remember that. Because we all don't bat 1,000. Would you agree with me? So that's something we just got to make sure that we're doing right by things. And none of this is rocket science, right? None of this we're talking about is rocket science. But it's just always good to put it in a frame and to look at it through the frame. Then that's what's important. So you know, build those and give your vendor some love too, by the way. That's important. So circulate with purpose. And that's a good thing. Any questions on that, or are we good? Excellent. So now we go to page 2, and we got to focus on solutions. Spend more time on solutions than problems. And here's the deal. We are just conditioned this way to make problems bigger than they really are. And people like doing that. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Usually when bad news comes dancing in the door, it always comes in dancing the door so big. And then once we really sit down, once we really do analysis, once we really, you know, go through the process of breaking it apart, we realize that it wasn't that big. There might be some fundamental structural issues here and there, but ultimately it's not as big as we made it to be. And that together, we have the ability to figure this out. And so having that solutions mindset is so important. And yeah, I think a lot of times when our emotions are involved in solutions is usually when there's a lot of sideways energy. And most of the time in organizations, when I work with teams, when there's a lot of emotion around a solution, people are protecting something. They don't want to experience change that's happening to them. And because they're going to experience that change, there's emotion in that solution that it needs to be that way so I don't have to change, or my department doesn't have to change, or whatever it is, whatever fear that I'm battling internally about what might happen or how I might get exposed. More often than not, a lot of our people, and here's the thing, the people that we lead, it's so important that we encourage them and tell them like that we believe in them and that we believe in their skills. And now I'm gonna tell you why. Because most of the kook level stuff that goes on with leaders and teams is a byproduct of imposter syndrome. They're this ultimate fear that they're gonna be found out, that they're not as good as you think they are. And we all know that I don't know about you guys, I'm really good at beating the daylights out of myself. You know, I'm the king at it. And so, you know, and because we're doing that, we tend to believe the lies that we tell ourselves about ourselves. That is the game. The mind game is the game. And so we have to be able to circumvent that. And when people are good at bringing solutions, it does dial down that trigger panic. You know, they're not triggered into that negative psychology. So, you know, and again, just because we're going through this whole crazy thing, there's a lot of stuff that's happening between the 6 inches here that affect the 20 square feet around us. So, and when we think about it, everybody in your organization has been, you know, entrusted with 20 square feet of your company. And they have to manage that 20 square feet really well. And so it's just so important that, hey, solutions, you know, let's keep problems where they need to be. Let's be focused on solutions. Okay, enough of that. I beat that thing to death. All right, so let's go on to the next one. So hey, raising your game. This is a good one. I love this one, and I think this has been some of the conversations we've had with some of our clients recently. But man, let's be so good right now. Let's be outstanding. Let's take our level of communication to another level. Let's make sure that we're setting ourselves apart. You know, every organization needs to have a differential advantage. Your differential advantage is how you do what you do different than anyone else does it. And it could be a little bit those added things that you put in there that make a difference, that make all the world difference, that make they're value added, and it makes it easy to do business with you. You know, I always tell people, you know, one of the biggest difference advantages is the ease of doing business. Is it easy to do business with us? And do we have the things in place to make it easy? And so these are some of the things that we want to do. And so, you know, obviously you have to be able to double down on quality. And here's the deal. I think too, is when you make that commitment to mastery, it will feel slow. It will feel like you're walking through cement. But when you commit to mastery, you will eventually go fast. I think Stephen Covey used to say this, like, slow with people is fast and fast with people is slow. And I think that's something where I think that in terms of people's skill development and their ability to make a difference. You know, are we really in this season really focusing on mastery right now? And what are the things we should be mastering that make ultimately the difference to our customers in that part of it? And so I just want to you know, throw that out there. You know, it might feel like we're going slow, but I'll guarantee you, and you guys know this, you'll go fast. You'll go fast. And you won't necessarily have to be the one always beating the drum. So here's a question. Where do you guys need to raise your game? Where's the opportunity right now that you can step into to take your game to another level, whether it be your marketing, whether it be your communication, how you answer a phone, how you do customer service, how we're doing follow-ups, you know, our basic, you know, baseline quality. Are we raising the bar? You know, are we expecting more people to hold our value of quality to a higher level than we've ever done before? What are those things? Where are those areas that you want to focus on? And then next one is, obviously, if we're raising our game, here comes opportunity, right? Opportunity is going to come knocking on our door. So we definitely want to see, list, and deeply investigate opportunities. Now, here's the cool part about it. I've been told time and time again, you know, oh, Kevin, we'd love to help them, but we don't function that way, or we don't have that, or we don't. And I'm going, dude, let's just dig into this. Let's just dig into it. Let's take 30 minutes and let's have some fun. And let's dig into this and let's see, if you were to be able to do this, what that would mean and what difference that would make. Would it change you guys? Would it change your company and how you see your customers? And would there be would be a long tail to the value to the customer that you might step into? So overwhelm always creates opportunities. Your customer has this huge overwhelm, the phone rings. The phone rings, hey, can you do A, B, and C? Well, no, we don't. We've never done that. But they're overwhelmed. They don't care. They just want someone to help them. You know, and now they're going like, hey, what do you got? You know, and you say, well, you know what? We could do A, B, and C. We can try that. They're going to give you a ton of grace, but in the context, you get to go to school. You get to really do kind of like an R&D experiment with a customer that's going to really improve your relationship with them. And at the same time, give you guys a flyer on something you guys might innovate with in the future. And so, do you do metal? Well, we've never done metal before. Well, we'll do metal for you. Well, then now you're going through the whole deal of trying to do metal, and now you're going like, wow, this wasn't that bad. You know, we can handle this. And here's the thing, you'll learn things from this. You'll test some areas, and you'll see some leaders emerge in the context of it. I think it's huge. So fasten your seatbelts, because I think there's going to be a lot of this. I think there's going to be a lot of people knocking on your door saying, hey, can you? And your default, man, it's like your default was going to be like, well, you know, it's going to be that very hesitant kind of thing. You know, shut the door on that. You know, beat that thing down. You know, it's like, hey, you know what? Let's be disciplined about this. Let's do this. We'll come back with a plan. We'll put a proposal together. We'll do this. I'll tell you, you won't be sorry. You won't be sorry. So, dun, 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 opportunity's coming. It's coming your way. So, fasten seatbelts on that. And last one kind of goes in coordination with that one, right? Take massive action. And here's when I tell my clients to take massive action, the focus is we're going to do it now. So let's say we're in a meeting. had this happen 2 weeks ago where we were doing a virtual deal, and someone came up and they talked about an idea that they had. They had this idea, we could do this and we could do that. And then someone wanted to have a meeting about it. And I'm going, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life. Get your phone out and call them right now. Just make the phone call. We don't have to have a meeting about a meeting. And so let's do this. Let's get on this. And so the cool part about it is they got on the phone call and the whole meeting changed. We were just in this whole state of doing business, how the beat goes. And here's the thing. And the next thing you know, dude, we all of a sudden, when that phone call happened and that we got the answer there, all the idea, that whole energy went to a whole nother level. Excitement. People left that whole thing. I wasn't there, but I bet you they ran out of the room. I'm just going to sell it. So I would say they ran out of the room and they were so excited. But there was real energy there because we did it now. That's massive action. And so a lot of times we have great ideas, but man, we park them way too long. And I used to have this saying back in the church days, God does not put gas in parked cars. So this is the whole journey that you're on right now to get to that place to say, hey, let's dig in here and let's really pursue, whatever it is at whatever level we need to now. That makes sense? So we covered a lot here. We were burning rubber. So now I'm excited. I'm ready to run around. I'm like ready to jump up and down. Let's go. So shoot me your thoughts. I'm curious. I know, here's the thing. I'm not, this whole talking head thing, we're kind of now here with it, but you guys have great ideas. If as you look at the frameworks, how have you looked at like how you take massive action, or how have you raised the game? Because I know you're doing this stuff. I'm probably not saying a whole lot of things that you guys aren't doing on some level. I'm just curious, what are some things you guys are doing? Because I think the best wisdom happens in the collaboration and sharing of what you guys are thinking and doing. And we got a rock star cast here. So talk to me, gang.
Okay. Yeah. The thing that we did was started a metal shop, and we had our first install out in the field 2 days ago. It was a huge success, and the customer said that he loved it, and could you do another one? So here we go.
Beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Then we've been,
five right there.
we've been practicing here on our site. We're putting metal stairs and rails out on our exterior doors, and we're learning stuff, and we have some very beautiful stairs that are outside that nobody will ever see except on social media. One of them was painted with car paint, and it's like, it's too good, it's too nice. Of course, it's right outside the finishing shop, so.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. This is, like I always tell people, this is a story you get to tell now.
Yeah.
This is to remember when. Someday you'll be down the road and you go, hey, remember when we painted that stair with car paint? You know what I mean? That's as
that one that's still there and looks good.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Take your pick. Whatever one jumps out. If there's anyone there where you go, oh wow, that was something. Here's what we did.
Okay, I'll throw one in there.
Sweet.
I have for years sort of talked to people about my stair customers, obviously. How are your knees? How are your hips? Have you had surgery on either? We talk about the ergonomics and the comfort factors behind staircases, and everybody's walked up a super steep staircase that was uncomfortable, or one that was very comfortable, and of course there's a whole range in between. But I've been thinking lately, and I'm going to have an opportunity at 3 o'clock today. I've got a client go to meeting where you have to have direct client contact, I think, to do this effectively. but I've been toying with putting together kind of a client ergonomic stair design assessment tool.
Wow.
You know, everything from knee and hip surgeries in the past, or current knee and hip pain, to what's your shoe size, to, you know, if we move this beam, we can get you an extra inch of run on each stair. We did a job many years ago where it was an existing house, single gal, and she had had bilateral knee surgery, and now it was going up to her hips. And the question was, could she stay in the house she was in, that she had loved, and big yard and garden, and gorgeous place, single gal. And we built the staircase for her, added 2 more risers. And the look on her face, the first time she came down that stair, and what she said, "I get to stay in my house," was it was a simple stair, but it was one of the most satisfying jobs I ever had. And I think as a marketing tool, getting beyond the shape of the baluster and into a client's personal ergonomics, their private lives, what the stair can do, or might be able to do, or might actually be difficult or cause difficulty in the years ahead, their age and their prognosis and whatnot. I'm not a doctor, but these things are not rocket science in terms of whether you've got knee pain. It'll be interesting to see how that rolls out, what kind of reaction I get, and whether that's something that we end up using going forward. I think it could be a powerful tool.
That's a great idea for a scenario exercise too. When you look at a growing demographic of age, you know, 50 and above, the boomers are all kind of entering into that world, but there's still a viable economic, you know, component. And so how do we service that and stay connected with that group of people? Because there are going to be a lot of people who are going to wonder, can I stay in my house? I wonder that. We have a basement, we go up the thing. So I'm kind of wondering how long I'm going to be able to bounce up and down the stairs. Like,
exactly.
That's a great word. Great stuff, Sean. Excellent. Cool. Anyone else got a winner out there? That's good stuff.
Well, my thoughts.
Go ahead, Rusty.
My thoughts was getting back to the reaching out and doing things for builders, making those communications, doing things to take pressure off of them. We have found out a lot of our contractors are so busy right now, they're overwhelmed. And so we've started taking that extra step of doing things that we normally wouldn't do, just making their life easier, meeting with a clientele, doing things that they don't have to, that's no longer on their plate. And what that's doing, that's building our clientele, that's building a relationship that I believe will have a great impact on fourth quarter this year, first quarter next year, or whenever, if things do tend to turn down. So, you know, I would be encouraged, you know, to continue a path like that. And as you said about the action, get it done. You know, let's don't have a meeting about having a meeting. Let's just do it and get it done and take it off their plate.
Nice. That's a good word, Rusty. A good word. And it does. And they'll remember you. And I think that's the part of that. We underestimate that whole part of that, you know, that neuroscience piece of this, where our brains, you know, we get that wiring in there, and Rusty, they're going to remember that. They're going to go, hey, these guys were with us and we're going to be with them. And I think, and when you do things like when you see somebody who's overwhelmed and you offer that goes even further. I mean, that means you're paying attention to me, you know, and when you're paying attention to me, it kind of takes the transactional part of the relationship out of it. Although there will always be a transactional side of it, but it does transform the relationship in a good way. So that's a great idea. Great idea.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Bob, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to expand on 2 things, both what Rusty said and what Sean said. What I've built my business on, and it has served me very well, is the word service. Service is something that in our society has gone and fallen by the wayside. In Rusty's regards, in answer to your question, Rusty, my approach has been, and I chuckled when my wife and I first started watching the TV show New Amsterdam, if anybody's seen it, because his approach is What can I do for you? My approach with my builders is, let me take the stair concerns and problems and issues out of your ballywhack. I'll take care of those for you. And once they become comfortable with me, and I've done it once, now I've gotten to the point where the customer will, the builder will get me in contact with the customer. I do the selling, I solve the problems, I keep him involved in the loop with emails so he knows when I've corresponded, how things are going, if there's any issues or questions. He doesn't have to be there as just a listening body because he has a confidence in me. And I execute the design, keep him in the loop. I've taken that problem out of his lap, and that has worked into more consistent repeat builders. The second part of the service equation goes back to what Sean says. I take great pains to educate my customers. I insist my customers come to see me in most cases, or we have a go-to meeting. And I ask the questions and understand the majority of my client base is, in reality, is retirement age. Most of these folks that are doing these high-end homes in New England, along the ocean, along the lakes, are retired. And so I'm always asking them, what's your expectations out of this home? How long do you plan on living there? And most of them want to live there as long as possible. And so, like Sean said, educating them about why do we want a wall rail on both sides instead of one. You know, like I explained to these folks, look, I've watched and observed a grandmother that had severe arthritis. How did she use a staircase? I have a severely handicapped son with cerebral palsy that I have to help be able to go up and down a stair. How do they use a staircase? Having a wall rail on both sides, or having a continuous rail, or changing the pitch, all these things will make a difference. And like I tell folks, you're healthy now, but at some point in your life, you're going to have a knee that bothers you, even if it's for 2 weeks or a month. You're going to be happy that we didn't make a stair that wasn't uncomfortable to try to save space or do anything. I said, that's a service factor thing. And I think it served me very well. I think businesses need to stay on top of the service factor moving forward, because our society, it doesn't matter whether it's the teenage girl that's disgusted at you for being that you interrupt her phone call so that she checks you out at the store. You know, service is something that has slipped the wayside. I was amazed. I thought in 2008, when the economy went to crap, that you would see people and businesses step up the service factor, and it seemed like in reality it went the other way, because you had people that weren't of skilled stepping into positions. And so my advice and my long proven step is to take Sean's advice, take Rusty's advice. It's served me very well. You spend a little bit of time with these folks and educate them, then they make choices. They trust you. They are at that point are willing to spend more money to get a product that is going to enhance their life.
Cool deal. Cool deal. Thanks, Bob. Anyone else got a good one out there?
I could chime in.
Chime in, baby.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for signing in a little late. But Kevin, your topic of interest here is perfect in terms of timing. We're seeing a lot of like the first step for us has always been trying to get everyone on an even keel in terms of where their head's at. And like you said, it's not just about positive thinking, but it's about just kind of thinking constructively. Mm-hmm. That's a major hurdle. That has been a major hurdle under the current economic situation that we're finding ourselves in. But what I wanted to key in on was that, and we cycle through this kind of stuff all the time, but now we're in a very hyper situation, of course. But the idea has been, okay, well, wait a second here. If we have an opportunity, let's talk about it. How do we feel about it? And we'll have that discussion. But then the next step is, okay, well, let's quantify it. That's the big one for us. Is like, okay, well, I'll give you a great example. Right now we've been producing for the last 3 months, probably, the super thick floating treads. We're producing them in a more volume way. We used to do them job by job, maybe 12 or 20 or so at a time. And it was a pain in the ass. But there was a market for it, for those floating steps, 3-inch, 4-inch thick. And we realized, well, wait a second, we should be making a lot more money on this than we are. It's a premium product. It takes us abundantly more labor to produce this, and it's eating away at us doing what we do to basically make our bread and butter. So we feel there's an opportunity, we feel there's something there, we know we have the know-how, but how do we connect the dots? How do we quantify this? What are we lacking? Do we have to shorten the runtime by half? For instance, what's keeping us from obtaining that goal? What's stopping us production-wise from meeting the target that we want, so that we can go and push more sales of this? That we can go out and say, hey, Sean, hey, Rusty, hey, whoever, John, Bob, I have this product. Instead of it coming to me or to us and, yeah, we can sort of kind of do it, that kind of thing. Let's start attacking. Let's go into attack mode, basically. So basically we end up quantifying these things and to meet a target, and it's worked out. So like, I use the floating tread as an example, but my gosh, it could be a different run on a different species. It could be a lot of different things. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. I thought maybe it might be interesting.
I think that's good, Andy. And I think too, you always want to be able to, test everything, and you always want to do, times of, hey, how are we doing on that? Is it meeting our expectations? I don't think organizations evaluate enough. I think they need to evaluate more. What's right, what's wrong, what's missing, what's confused. What is building right now? What is booming? What's declining? What's tanking? Where are the parts of our process where we're working well, and what parts of the process, where are the bottlenecks? And where do the bottlenecks change at scale? Do the bottlenecks shift in one part when we're trying to scale as opposed to another part? I think, and here's what's great, I think too, Andy, I think whenever you do that with the team in the room, they grow. Like, they start to understand context, so that when you have to make a decision or you're trying to make a call, they're not blind to where you're coming from. They can, they sat around the table and debated some things with you, and they know that you're thinking about some things, even if they aren't the things that they like. So I think that's huge, Andy. Good word right there.
Yeah.
Lots of good nuggets. Lots of good nuggets out there. Anyone else got a good one? I don't know where we're at with time, Tara. I just want to make sure we're cool with time.
You're good. Yeah. If anyone has questions, we have a few more minutes to take those for sure. Any other ideas and things that you're doing?
I have one more comment, and unfortunately, I got tied up coming back from a project, so I missed the early part of your stuff, Kevin. It's always terrific. You always bring a lot to the table, so I can't wait to hear the recording, and I'll go back and hear the recording. So, but one of the things that I think as a business moving forward through this process is going to be most important: communication. It seems like, I have jobs that, through the whole summer and into the fall, I'm on the phone with these folks and saying, you know, how are things going? Are you working? You know, how are your jobs flowing? And I'm finding here in New England, everybody's still working, you know, and the builders are very much trying to change their processes and keep one or two subs so that people are staying separated. This is going to go on throughout the rest of the year into next year. So we got to change the way we work, and the whole name of the game as a stair builder, being a subcontractor, is communicate with the builders once in a while. I never have them, they always tell me, thanks for calling. They always say that, thanks for calling, checking in. It only takes a minute on your part to pick up the phone and be proactive about just saying, how are things going on the job? What's your schedule look like? Are you behind a little bit, or, you know, and it builds that confidence that Rusty's talking about, that they don't have to chase you around. You're staying on top of it. You're easy to be reached. You respond quickly. You communicate well with them. That carries a lot of weight in building repeat clients.
It sure does.
And I think everybody would agree, and I think you just really, you know, I can't stress it enough. You know, I've got a plumber I just fired the other day finishing my house in Maine because I've called the guy, and you call him, and he doesn't want to talk to you, so he doesn't call you back. It's like, at that point, you finally say, enough's enough. All you have to do is call me and say, hey, I'm a month behind where I thought I was because of the coronavirus. I can deal with that. I can't deal with not communicating. And I think most customers feel that way. So I really think, keep it in mind, be proactive about communicating is going to help as the next months go by, because we're all still going to be in uncertain times for this whole year at least. And I think probably a year and possibly 2 years before this stuff settles out.
You know, Bob, I think one thing too that I talk to my clients about when it comes to communication, just jumping on that, is there's a part of communication where do I want something from you, or do I want something for you? And so sometimes we communicate because I want something from you, and it feels that way. And that's not life-giving to the relationship with of the customer. So, you know, if I'm communicating with them and I want something for you, you know, that's really important. They feel like that I'm contacting them to engage with them, not to just get an answer or something that's going to solve my problem. So always keep in mind as you're communicating, sometimes we're trying to scratch our own itch in our communication, and that will be received and perceived as you being selfish. So always make sure, hey, I want something for you. How you doing? You can get your answer. Just take a little time on the front side. You know, bring something to them that's for them before you get something from them. So I think that's
excellent advice.
You want
excellent advice. Thank you. Good point. I will keep that very much in mind. That's like you said. You want it about the customer, not about you.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Good deal. I'm pumped, man. It's good. Lots of good nuggets here. I'm hearing crickets. So are we good?
I think so. I'm checking. There are no raised hands. Again, if you're calling from a phone and you want to ask questions, you can, we have a thumbs up, so that's awesome. You can *6 to unmute yourself. You can *9 if you want to raise your hand, but I think we're good to go.
Cool deal.
So Kevin, thank you so much.
Hey, so
thank you, Kevin.
Hey, I got some cool stuff coming up. I got a website launching. So I'll be letting you guys know I got some good I'm building out some really cool stuff on there, like how to have good fights with your team and good stuff. So fasten your seatbelts, and I look forward, hopefully, when we all get together again and have a little bit of fun. So take care of yourselves, be safe, and hopefully we'll see you again. Do some damage.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.